What's up, weirdos?
Hey, yo.
Me? Shit. I got me a little something rolled. The lights are low, and we're about to chop it up with Abigail on the Manic, Pixie, Weirdo podcast.
Okay.
A safe space for weirdos of all shapes, sizes, colors, and creeds to relax and speak their piece.
Speak that piece.
So grab your glass of wine and grass the chief as I get off the mic so the main weirdo can speak. Peace.
Peace, God.
What is up, weirdos? You're listening to the Manic Pixie Weirdo. I'm Abigail, your host, and this is the podcast where we talk about all the different kinds of relationships that we can have in our lives. And this week, we are talking about my relationship with the future. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the dark, bleak stuff first, get that shit out of the way, and then we're going to talk about some hopeful stuff, like what gives me hope for the future. Because that shit is bleak, you guys. Like from where I'm sitting, shit is bleak. Shit is real bleak. Shit is dark. Shit is getting kind of scary. And, that doesn't feel good. And I don't know if that it's like, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, it's always been kind of like doom and gloom, I guess. Like everybody's always like, the future is it's going to be so shit, like all this stuff. And so from like a historical perspective, I would say like shit has gotten like progressively better. From like a historical perspective, like context, as far as like, so like that would be like the macro, right? Like that's on like a macro scale. Like zoom out and look at it from like, I don't know, the last like 5,000 years or something, like shit has gotten, progressively better as far as like where we are, kind of like mentally and emotionally and like all of that sort of stuff, like from a human perspective, I feel. But then like on a micro scale, it's definitely like shit is bleak. Guys, it's just not looking great. Like, and like I said, I know it feels like everybody says that. Like it feels like all the generations are like, this is it. This is like what it's gonna be, like it's all downhill from here. Kind of a thing. I feel like though that this is kind of like to a certain extent more realistic now. Like I understand why it is kind of like why everything kind of is the way that it is. And and I understand more about like how that, like what the future implications of those things are going to be, and it's just, I get really bogged down. Like I really do. I get really bogged down by like the weight of it because it's so heavy and it's so like, everybody compares like depression to, or okay, I guess not everybody. Not everybody compares depression to like drowning. But I've heard the comparison most often, that depression feels like you're drowning. I, to a certain extent, disagree. I think that it's more, it's slower than that for me. It's more painful than that for me. It feels very drawn out and very, almost like death by a thousand cuts kind of a deal. And those thousand cuts are kind of, all the different like facets of, what we're seeing, what we're witnessing, what we're a part of, what um like the sort of collective consciousness is sort of gearing towards. You know, it's hard and it's rough and it sucks a lot. Um, there's a lot of shit with this, and I feel like that's kind of what you get when you begin to sort of peel back the layers of um, like what is happening. And like it makes perfect sense to me, like then why people start believing in like, you know, like conspiracy theories and stuff like that. Um, because it's like, well, if they're lying about like if all of this was a lie, then like why not? Because at that point, it's like now we've entered into a fantasy world where it's like anything is possible. Like anything could be, um, like real. And I don't know. I've definitely not like, I'm not necessarily, like on the George, sorry, this episode is like so all over the place. That's just because it's like very, I don't know. My thoughts are just like all over the place and just like going rapidly one at a time. Because it's such a big topic. Like it's so overwhelming sometimes. Just like thinking about the future and you know it, and I think that's one of the reasons why my thoughts are just like super scattered because it's just it's like there's a million different things that you could talk about with regards to the future. You know, you could talk about so many different things, um and so many things that just look like, or that make me feel like very defeated, you know, that it's just like fuck, man, really? Like at this point, I'm not shocked by anything. Like it's really bad. Like it's just like, of course, like that like of course that happened. Like obviously, because at this point, it's like why wouldn't this horrible thing like occur? You know, and I don't, and I can't like. I've tried reading like, you know, like articles that like meaningless articles. Like I'm specifically talking about like when you look at the news or whatever. Like it's just very like, I don't know. Like I don't know. Like it's because like I've tried to listen or read or, you know, consume, I guess, sort of like bullshit news, you know, um in the sense that like stuff that I don't actually give a shit about, like stuff that I don't actually care about, but like I guess is happening and is like supposedly relevant in the world. So like that would be like celebrity news or like, you know, like trash TV or whatever. um, like I've definitely tried going like that route, and seeing like, you know, if that sort of numbs like the reality. It doesn't do shit, man. It's like trying to give yourself a local anesthetic. Like it might as well not. Like it does nothing. Um, for it just it does nothing to ease the pain. It does nothing to help. Like it's not gonna work. And and I don't know. I mean, like if that's your, like if it works for you, like I get it. By all means, like consume whatever. Like that's fine. um, we've all got our vices. I'm not gonna judge you too harshly on that one. Like I get it. You know, sometimes you just need, you know, trash TV or whatever. Like I get it. It's whatever. um, it's just like I can't do it for very long. Like I can't. I can't, because it's like, I know it's one of those things where it's like, I know it's a just like, I really wish I could go back to the day. See, and this is the problem. Okay. I really wish I could go back to the days when I knew nothing. However, I don't really feel like I know I have a really bad memory. Like, I don't remember a lot of like, I don't remember a lot of my life. And, I remember like bits and pieces. I have bits and pieces of my life, but I don't have like I couldn't tell you from this time to this time. Like, I don't know. But anyway, so like I know I have a bad memory, but I just like I don't think that there was ever really a time where I didn't know that like it was all bullshit, if that makes sense. Like if I really sit and think about it, like even from like a very small child, like I knew this was bullshit. Like I knew this thing called life was just like like just mad chaos, like just utter chaos. Um and that it like doesn't make any sense the way that we do it or whatever. It's just cuz it's just like living with extra steps. Um and like more stress and stuff. And so it just doesn't like if I'm being honest, like I said, it makes no sense to me like why we do the things that we do. Which is why humans fascinate the shit out of me. They really do. They fascinate the shit out of me because it's like, but why? And so I guess what I was gonna say earlier was that like I'm not I'm not quite to like the George Carlin like explanation of it all, in the sense that like I'm not um like he is famous for saying that like he basically decided that and I'm paraphrasing here. I don't know the exact quote, but it's something along the lines of like he basically decided that he is indifferent and doesn't care what happens with this grand experiment called humanity. That he likes individuals, people on an individual basis. Um, However, uh, once they start forming in groups, like clotting in groups, whether that be around like, you know, like an ideology or like a common, like whatever their like once they start clotting into groups, that's when he begins to have like problems with them, with humans. Um, so I don't think I'm like there, if that makes sense, where I'm like, I don't like, I definitely don't really care how this like like if it is a grand experiment, if humans are a grand experiment, like I don't really, I don't have like a dog in that fight, I guess. I just like, I kind of don't care. Um, like I feel like we're going to be fine. My husband recently said that he believes that, you know, uh, humans are the cockroaches of the universe. Like like we will find a way. Like it's already done, kind of a thing. I don't, I don't have an issue with that. Because again, I don't really care if like what happens with humanity, like on a whole. Um, because I'm just one person, kind of a thing. Um, I don't. It doesn't really matter to me if like if the and what I mean by this is like if the aliens showed up tomorrow and like Independence Day this whole situation, I wouldn't necessarily like be mad at the aliens. You know, I'd just be like, well, okay. I mean, right on. Like good for the aliens or whatever. Like I don't cuz I just don't care. Um and but there also is a part of me. See, and this is why I don't think I'm like fully at that place, is because like there is a part of me that is like, but I do. Like, but I kind of do. Um and I mean that on like, so like what I mean by like I don't like the I don't care part, that's like on a macro scale, right? Like that's on the one that's like humanity as a whole. Um like on the macro scale. On a micro scale, like if you zoom in, like I do care. I do give a shit because I have people. I have other, like, I have dogs in certain fights. You know, I've invested like time and energy and like, you know, that kind of thing into like relationships with other humans. And or I've tried to, because I'm still, you guys, I'm still not convinced. Like, I don't know how to human well. I really don't. And I'm trying. Like, that's part of the reason why, like, I hold Twitter spaces and I like have the show and, um, you know, all of those things is because I want to get better at humaning. And the problem is humans are confusing and don't really make a lot of sense sometimes, and very contradictory. They're very like do as I say, not as I do. Don't get me wrong, there are exceptions, obviously, to all of these things. There's obviously exceptions. And I think I found a few exceptions to the rule, so that's cool. That's kind of cool. Um, I just, I don't know, like, I don't think, I don't think I'm at the point where like, because if I truly didn't care, then I like wouldn't, and I would even argue to a certain extent that like Carlin like didn't really believe that to a certain extent. Like he was talking about it on like a macro scale, and then like on a micro scale, I bet if you asked him like, because he has like children, and so it's like I bet if you asked him like, you know, but does he give a shit about like, you know, his family or whatever, like he seemed, especially, I like just watched the George Carlin documentary, the two-part documentary. It's really long, you guys. It's so long it took me forever to finish. But it's pretty good. It's really good. It's very interesting. But like he did have a family, and so like I were, if I were a betting person, I would say that like he gave a shit about them. So I wouldn't say that like, you know, he's completely devoid of like care. Um so it just kind of, I guess it just kind of depends on like which kind of scale you're talking about. Um Listen, if you don't care either, like like that's fine. Or if you do care, like it's totally fine. Like we need both kind of a thing, I guess. Is what I'm trying to say. And so like that kind of, I don't I don't know. Okay, because the future, like I said, from a macro scale, promising. Like we're making slow, steady progress. Slow, steady progress up is good. Like that's fine. Like we need to just keep on that trajectory. Now the problem is that keeping on that trajectory means we have to update shit. And I feel like a lot of the world is still stuck in like 1985. Um, which nothing wrong with 1985, okay? Like I'm not hating on 1985. I'm just saying like, especially from like a technology standpoint and like that kind of thing, like we've got to come on. Like I want fuck I was like, do you have any idea what the fuck I was promised as a child? Like I was promised that we would have like flying cars and hoverboards and like, you know, where you and you'd like, you know, be able to like walk around and there would be like no crime, and there was like, you know, all this like cool stuff that was like available for everybody to have. And like, you know, when you go to the grocery store and you're in, you know, and you you know, like there's all, it's just like I don't know, like I was promised so much fucking cool shit. Like we had the Jetsons growing up, we had fucking, you know, like I mean I've still I saw like Back to the Future, like I've seen it, I understand. Like y'all were promised some shit too. Okay, I understand. We've all been promised shit and it's not here. And I'm very disappointed. Okay, I was promised so much fucking cool shit and we have none of it. So, and the more that I like look into like why we don't have cool shit, the reasons get very dark and very bleak very quickly. And and that's sort of, I guess that's sort of like what I mean is that like once you start unpacking this shit, once you're like, well, but why don't we have cool shit? Like, but like, why not? Why can't we just like, you know, have flying cars? Like, what? Like, are we not? Like, I guess we're just not that advanced. Um. Oh God, I can hear everybody coming out now. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Comparatively, to whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, 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 okay. I understand what you're saying. Yes. That's not what I mean. I mean, like, advanced in the sense that, like, not everybody has access to it, or, you know, where it's, like, feasible and affordable for everybody to have. Or why not just, like, give it to everybody? I don't understand. Like, we, I don't, and okay, yes. So, like, again, once you start like unpacking this shit and once you start like going and you start really looking at shit and you're just like, okay, so we don't have cool shit because like of this. Well, what about? And then you just like follow it down the rabbit hole. Sorry. Oh my gosh, that was so loud. So sorry. I just, you begin to understand like, once you begin to understand the why behind questions, um, all of the other questions start to like fall into place. And then you kind of just have to, uh, I guess, like go with it or whatever. Um, and you kind of begin to understand like why certain things are certain ways and why, like even to a certain extent, like cultural things and um, like social things and stuff like that, where you're just like, oh, like you begin and oh, gosh, the more you unpack it, the more it's just like, why? But why? Why? This is dumb. This is stupid. Why do we do it like this? It makes no sense. Like it makes no fucking sense, you guys. It I think that's the most frustrating part is that it's just like none of it makes any fucking sense. And we're all just doing it because like we're either being told that like that's what we need to do, which not a good reason for me. Like any just ask anybody in my life. Like if if you can't give me a reason that I find good to do something, it's not going to happen. It's not happening. Like it's just no. Why? Because what? Like it's devoid of purpose in my mind, and therefore it means nothing. Literally, in all aspects of that, in all facets of that, like it is devoid of purpose, and therefore it's like, well, I don't think so. Um, and I just humans fascinate me on so many levels, on so many fucking levels. And one of those levels is that like we're obviously like intelligent. Obviously, like we've been able to figure out how to build great big things and figured out how to like manipulate, you know, we're basically wizards. If you put it like we're basically like wizards and witches. Like it's kind of interesting because we have figured out how to like manipulate the world around us and use like like be able to harness certain elements and I mean like yeah, like it's we have the power to do all of the things right? We have the power. We very clearly have the power and ability to be able to do all of the things, like to have nice shit, to make sure everybody has basic needs covered, like all the things. Like world peace is literally within our grasp. We are just we're just staring at it and just like laughing at it. Like that's what we're doing. We're world fucking peace, you guys, is like realistically, like if we all got together and like banded together and like said enough was enough, like we're not putting up with this shit anymore, and we all collectively decided, like as a whole unit, like as a species, like this is like we're not doing this anymore. We're doing something else. We're trying something else, something that works for everybody, kind of a thing. Like that legitimately could be within our grasp in like 5 years. No joke. If we all got together, if we all banded together, like if everybody around the world banded together and like and just was like, no, just was like, no, we're fucking done with the bullshit. Yeah, I estimate within 5 to 10 years we could have we could establish like world peace if we all got together. Yeah, and everybody was on the same page. See, that's the everybody has to be on the same page. Like, you know, but that's why. So, okay. I hate to use this phrase, but I mean, it's kind of fitting for what I'm about to say. You know, they say Rome wasn't built in a day. I don't know the rest of the quote. I believe there's a rest of the quote, but I don't know it. And what I take to mean by that is that not only was Rome not built in a day, Rome wasn't built by one person. And and so it's like this the moral of that story is like, you know, patience, like learn to be patient kind of thing. I am not. I am an impatient person. I I'm working on it. I think we're getting better as far as like our patience is concerned. I'm not perfect. I will probably be working on it my whole life. I mean, hopefully, eventually we get to a place where it begins to become second nature, like a habit. That's the goal. That's what we hope, but you never know. You know, one day, maybe. And I don't. And so, like, my point in saying that is that, like, the future, yes, obviously the future is rough. There does come a point, though, where, like, eventually these things will occur. Eventually these things will happen. Like, world peace will eventually, I believe world peace eventually will be achieved. It might look different than what I imagine it to be. But, you know, that's okay. Different isn't necessarily bad, it's just different. What scares me is like the fight that it's going to take to get to that place. Or at least to begin to like, because we haven't even like the finish line, okay, is nowhere close. Like, just accept that, okay? The finish line is nowhere close. We are not even halfway. Like, nope, not even halfway. At most, we're probably like 3 or 4 feet from the start. Okay. Progress has been made, though. Obviously, progress has been made. It's just slow and steady progress, which I think is the most frustrating part. And especially because I'm not a patient person. At least that's why or one of the reasons why it's super frustrating for me is because I'm not a patient person. And I, again, this is all from like a macro perspective. But I do believe that world peace will be achieved one day, not in my lifetime, not a chance. Now that doesn't mean that I know that's bleak. I know that's fucking bleak as shit. I get it. Like, I really do. I just don't like. I want to make an effort to be in the direction. I want my effort to be in the direction of like furthering that goal and not like hindering that goal, if that makes sense. At least that's like my goal, is that like, world peace would be achieved at some point, down the line in human history, whether I'm around for it or not, just because like that sounds lovely. That sounds really lovely. Everybody has everything that they need and everybody's taken care of and nobody is wanting or really needing for anything. And, we're just thriving as a species. We're just thriving. We're not hindering one another. We're not harming one another. We're not, we're healing. We will have healed a lot by that point, I hope, and we will begin to like rediscover who we are as a species and all of the things. Yeah, that sounds fucking great to me. Like that, yeah, let's make that happen. Okay, how do we do that? It's fucking dreary and rough. I know I keep using those words, but it's true. It's just fucking true. Like, it's just dreary and rough. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and take a break. We'll take a quick break and then we'll come right back. What is up, you guys? I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our sponsor for this episode, Newsly. It's an audio app for iOS and Android where they basically take articles from all over the world and all the trending topics that are on the web at any given moment, and it reads them to you in like a natural voice, like a human being would. It's basically the first time in the history of the internet where the entire web becomes listenable. It's really cool, you guys. They have all different kinds of articles from all different kinds of topics so that you can like stop scrolling and start listening, which I really love. You can follow all the, any topic, all the topics, whatever topic you want to talk about or listen about, from sports, science, Bitcoin, even the Kardashians, like everybody. They have all the latest articles and it reads them to you. So it's super easy. They also have podcasts, which is why I'm talking to you guys about it, because our podcast, along with podcasts from over 50 other countries, are on the app. So that's really, really cool. You can start listening there as well. You can download and use Newsly for free right now at www.newsly.me, or you can use this link in the description. And when you use the promo code P1X1EP0DCAST, that will give you a free month of premium subscription to Newsly. So go check it out, you guys. And thank you so much to Newsly for sponsoring this episode. And we're talking about my relationship with the future. And while it looks bleak, yes, obviously, there is hope, I think. I'll tell you, he gives me hope. The younger generations, they give me. I'm a millennial, but the generations younger than me, give me a lot of hope. They They really do. They're kind of like, you know, I don't know, like they're realizing younger that like it's bullshit, that this is bullshit. At least here in the United States. It does seem like other countries are kind of just like already on top of it. Which is great news for them, good for them. I don't know. I thought we were farther along than this, you guys. I thought we were farther along in humanity, I guess, in our evolution than I guess we actually are, which is like super disappointing. It's like so disappointing because it's just like, fuck. Like, we're not as far as I thought we were. And like, we're still, like, I saw on the news the other day that there's a bill coming into the Texas legislature to allow, or to not allow, excuse me, to not allow employers, and like places to not be able to discriminate based on like hair, based on your hair, as in like the hair on the top of your head, hair. And that just like bummed me out, man. Like, I don't think it was like, I don't think it was meant to bum me out. Like, I think it was meant more in like the context of like, look, like this thing is happening. Like this is good. And it's like, yes, while I understand that it's good, it's incredibly like sad and depressing that like we have to have laws around this. Okay? Like, I thought I didn't humans are so picky. They're so nitpicky about like just shit that doesn't like it just how can this possibly matter? Like, and I don't mean that like it doesn't matter in the sense that like it's not like important and like this bill shouldn't be brought to, like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's not what I'm saying is not like, like important. It's the fact that like it has to exist in the first place that is very depressing to me. Which is why I say humans are fucking nitpicky and we're super picky as shit. Like, we are the 5-year-old picky, like, eaters. We're the picky ones. We're the ones that, like, this is why the aliens haven't come yet, you guys, because we're the ones that, like, no one wants to hang out with, okay? I have bad news. Like, it's true. Okay. The aliens aren't here yet, or they haven't revealed themselves in their fullest extent to, mass portions of the human population because we're not cool enough. We're still like we're still at the fucking kids table, okay? I think we just made it to the kids table, to be perfectly honest. Like, we were the babies of the universe for quite a long time. Like, oh, look, they're so cute. Oh my gosh. And it's like, yeah, but now they're growing up. It's like yeah, they're growing up and they have their own like thoughts and feelings and things of that nature, and we're like 5, okay, and we can't figure out because we're communicating with people on this level. Like, that is how like rudimentary this stuff seems to me. And it's like, oh God, we're just like, this is one of the reasons why I'm like super terrified to be a parent, because it takes a long time. And I'm kind of like a greedy, instant, like I want it now kind of a person. And so it's like, like, if the human race is only about 4 or 5 or 6 years old, we'll say like 5, split the difference. We'll say 5. we are like, we're going through it, okay? And we've had some trauma. We've definitely like had like not a great childhood as far as like we've for sure had like trauma and shit. Um and now we're like acting out as a species, and so we're, you know, doing what we do best, and we're infighting, and we're, you know, we're picking on each other, and we're trying to like point fingers, and we're trying to, and it's just, oh my goodness, from like the outside perspective, like looking in on it, it's very just like, oh, how do you tame this behavior? Like, how do you heal this behavior? How do you like not dismiss it, because you don't want to dismiss it, because you don't want to invalidate the behavior, because it is valid behavior, because there has been a lot of like trauma and, you know, things that have happened to humans. So like, how do we begin to like heal that and sort of direct our energy into like more positive ways, and like teaching humanity like how to sort of foster like love and nurturing, like nurture and care, and um like empathy, and like these kinds of like, how do we foster and like bring that um bring those elements out, and like be vulnerable about it. um how do we make that happen? Because like, that's really, I think, sort of, especially when dealing with children, like you have to be very careful. And mind you, like if I'm right and we're only like 5 years old, then our brains like collectively have been like, I don't know if you've looked into the science or like the research like into like what like trauma and like complex trauma and like PTSD and like things of that nature like look like we're acting out as a species. We are not okay. Um we're throwing temper tantrums. Um you know, like we're not, but we also don't know how to communicate either, like with one another, like effectively. I think that's like really sort of like part of it. And if we only know how to communicate on like a 5-year-old level, um, you know, it's really hard to like reason with a 5-year-old. It's really hard to um, have them like understand and like latch onto it, and then be able to like absorb it and and then like be able to process it. It's also really hard for 5-year-olds to have like emotional regulation and things of that nature. And so it's like, you have, but you also have to be very, very like delicate, and you don't want, because you don't want to like re-traumatize and like, you know, that sort of thing. What you want to do is you want to help foster like healing. And so like, if the trauma like starts to come up and like present itself, and it will present itself in like various and sundry ways and forms, in the form of like action and behavior. And so like, you want, if that stuff does get like brought to the surface, when it's brought to the surface, you want to acknowledge it. You want to not necessarily like react to it. You just want to acknowledge it, validate it. You want to make sure that they feel like heard. And then you have to like open a line of communication, and trying to explain anything to a 5-year-old is like, especially when they, because they're not the best communicators either, you know. And and it's not their fault, like that's fine, it's not their fault. um I do think though that like 5 is where you can begin to kind of like begin to develop some of those like healthier coping skills and like teach healthier coping skills. And even if that means like, um we take a time out, or maybe we take deep yoga breath, or we we do we color, or we do you do something to kind of help the emotions be processed in a safe, comforting like environment and way. um I don't know, like it's just really hard with a 5-year old is what I'm trying to say. Like it's really delicate and really difficult, especially with a 5-year old that's been like traumatized. Like that's you almost have to be like more um like empathetic and understanding and like patient. There it is again, patience. And you have to really like be able to absorb. And sometimes 5-year-olds are kind of mean, and so sometimes you kind of got to be able, you kind of, you've got to be like, I am rubber and you are glue. What bounces off of me sticks to you, or whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the vibe of that, like you've got to like sort of embody. Oh God, our teenagers are gonna be brutal. I think humanity's teenagers are gonna be brutal, but we're not there yet. We're definitely not there yet. We're for sure still only like 5. So we don't have to really worry about that. Um, for a while anyway. Oh boy. College years are probably gonna be pretty wild too. Yeah. Those early 20s for humanity. Oh boy. It'll be interesting. I'll say that. It'll be very interesting. Again, not in my lifetime. Not in my lifetime. Um, I guess if I like have to come back, like I guess I'd want to come back like during that period of humanity or whatever, just to be like a fly on the wall. Like I don't want to be involved. I just want to be like a fly on the wall and just like not, you know. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't necessarily want to be human during that time. I just kind of want to be like a casual observer. Um, Maybe by that time, like I'll be able to come back as like a robot or something in my true form, you know, or whatever. But I don't know. I mean, like I said, the younger generations give me a lot of hope. Um, I feel like it's so millennial of me to like compare. I don't know. I just feel like that's a very millennial thing to do because, like, millennials, as far as I am aware, like my generation of humans, um, is very much uh, like, kind of like about, healing and trying to like do things better and be more attentive and um like all the things, I guess. And so, I don't know. Um I think we need to act as like a shield. Like like we need to be that shield for the younger generations. We need to be the ones on the front lines. Like it's our turn to kind of be on the front lines. Um and you know, help to a certain extent. I feel like we should kind of sit down and shut up. Um and we need to let like the younger generations sort of like we need to really listen. We really need to listen to the younger generations. Because they're for somehow they're all figuring out how to get like mass groups of people like on the same page. Good for them. First of all, great for them. Love that. Keep doing it. But they're also very much like they're a unit. They're very like, they're very much like a cohesive unit. And they all have like this sense of camaraderie with each other that I think we could learn from. I definitely think we could draw from that. Um, I also think that they are, they're like I said, they're at to a certain extent. I feel like they're almost like being forced into learning this stuff, like just like about life, like younger, which makes me sad, again for them. But it it also gives me like it's also like a double-edged sword because I get like the hope too, because it's like they're realizing at such a young age, you know, all of the things like, that it's all bullshit. Um that it's just like they're figuring out like they're becoming more like um not intuitive, but like more, I guess, like intuitive to a certain extent, but they're also becoming more like um ingenuitive, I guess. Is that a word? Did I make that up? I feel like that's a word though. um and so like that really like gives me hope for them. And I have like god kids and stuff, and so like, and I think they're technically part of like generation alpha, which I think is the, if I'm correct, that is the generation after Gen Z. um so yeah, I mean, I feel like, so that gives me hope. That's something that gives me like a lot of hope for the future. I just think we need to, like, as millennials, like we need to make sure that we're doing our part and like um being that frontline shield for them to explore and figure this out and like come up with ideas. And um we need to create that safe space while also like figuring out how we can like take the heat, because they're going to get a lot of flack. They're going to get a lot of there's going to be a lot of heat. And they can't fight that heat and you know try to do what they and be able to do what they need to do. So like I think millennials, like, we need to step up, um and kind of, like I said, be that like shield for them, um or at least sort of like, I don't know, be like a wall or something. Just be that like help them build that, be that outer fortress of that, to like help protect them. And obviously the generations that come after, Generation Alpha or whatever, and everything too. Um, I so that, like I said, that gives me hope for the future. Um, I I don't know. I just don't. The problem is that like it kind of lights a fire under my ass, like to sort of get in gear and like figure this shit out, and like help them like with them. Um, the other part of it too, though, is that like there is this like realistic part of my brain that's just kind of like, do you have any idea how difficult this is going to be? Like we also need to be like as incredibly realistic as like we possibly can about like how difficult um this fight is going to be, because this is an uphill battle both ways in the snow kind of a situation. Like this is what that metaphor is. And so I don't know. I think that's sort of, maybe I should have just like changed the podcast name to I don't know, Because I feel like I say that a lot. But I don't. I mean, I don't have all the answers. I definitely don't have all the answers. I wouldn't want to have all the answers either. That would be no fun. That would be like super no fun. Um, so like it's not like I'm like totally not excited for the future. Like for my own future, like I'm like my own personal, like in my own little bubble, in my own little world, I'm like excited for my future and stuff. Um, to see where it takes me because it's an adventure. I have to look at life as an adventure. Um, I prefer, to live in that fantasy world of adventure. If I'm being honest, though. Um, but just because it's like, it's like my own form of escapism kind of a thing. Um, which I think, like everybody has escapism, which again, that also makes me very sad because it's like, if everybody, like, I don't know, it's one of those things where it's like, what is everybody trying to escape from? Like, is shit so bad? Like, is shit really all like that bad that like literally everybody has to have some form of escapism in order to like cope with life? And the answer to that question is yes. Um, yes, it is that bad. And it gets worse every day. Um, I see, and I mean, all you have to do is just scroll through your news feed or turn on the fucking news or whatever, and you'll see it. I mean, it's coming at you from all angles, which is why you need a form of escapism because in order to like cope with the world around you, because yeah, it makes no fucking sense. It makes no fucking sense. Um, Now the challenge for me though is taking that fantasy, taking all the fantasies that I have in my head and making them into realities. Because everything, I mean, and you can tell me whatever about like, that's fantastical thinking or that's magical thinking or I've heard it all. It's fine. Call me whatever you want. Um, that's fine. Doesn't really bother me. Um, but I kind of look at it like, uh, you know, everything was a fantasy before it was a reality. So, ha, take that. That's that's my comeback um, to you. Um, yeah, is that everything was a fantasy before it became a reality. Um, Even the word impossible says I'm possible. So, you know, take that with what you will. Ha, that's that's my retort. Um, but, you know, I mean, I don't mind that. It's just a struggle. It's just a real struggle. Um, Trying to make all that stuff happen. It can be done. It just, I do everything really slowly. It takes me a while to like get everything done. So I I don't know. I have to be patient with myself because I um and sort of like have that acceptance about myself that like I do kind of take longer in order to like get things done. Like it does take me longer to sort of really like come up with things and like come up with like ideas because I like to gather sort of, I don't know, like as much information as I possibly can about a subject before I like make a decision, I guess, if that makes sense. Um and so it takes me longer. It just takes me longer because there's so much information out there. You remember when not enough information was the problem? I remember that time. I remember that time that happened. Yeah. And now we have the opposite problem. We have um I wouldn't say too much information. I would say more that we have like segmented information, and it's really difficult to like filter through like what is um like true like information versus what is like false. Um and that's really difficult to do. Like you really have to put in like a lot of time and energy and effort, which, I don't, another thing, it shouldn't be like that. Like it shouldn't, there, so many issues. There's so many issues with the way that we do things, with the way humans do things. It's just like, and it's very inefficient too. Like, I don't know. It's just, we're highly frustrating, very interesting, very, very interesting, complex, I would say. Um, in 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 that we like complexity, we're not necessarily like, I mean, I guess we are like highly complex. Um Sorry, there was a dog groaning. But everything's fine. He's okay. He's just pitching a fit cuz he wants attention. Sorry. Side quest. What was I saying? Oh yes. So I just don't like, yeah, so we're like complex in the sense that like we like complexity, and yes, to a certain extent we are very incredibly complex like creatures. Like we've just sort of, I mean, I'm sure you've seen the stuff. We like just finished mapping the human genome and stuff like that. So um which, makes me feel a little bit better about how long it takes me to like get stuff done and to like accept ideas and like understand things and like, whatever, because it's like, well, I'm not super far behind because like human beings as a species, like we take forever. We really take forever. Um which is fine. That's fine. It's just that it takes forever, you know? So, I don't know. I don't want to say that like the future is kind of what you make it. Um as far as like which viewpoint you want to look at it, like the future is going to be positive if you think positively, or the future will be negative if you think negatively. Like, I don't, that's not like yes, but no. Does that make sense? Like, yes, you are correct in the sense that, like, to a certain extent, yes, if you look at things in a certain way, then, you know, it will, your outcome and your perception and like whether or not you're optimistic or pessimistic will like inevitably be due to that perception. Um but there is a no in that, and the no is that like there is a third category, and that third category is reality. And I mean, if you look, if you remove the feeling from it and you just look at the reality of it, it's like it's nothing. It's like it's kind of um it just is, if that makes sense. Like it is, and it will be. Um and but that's where, you know, that's where you can begin to, if you have the mind to do it, that's where you can begin to kind of like play with it and morph it and meld it and figure out like what you want, where everything, like where, you know, you get to play with it, you get to like manipulate it and play with it, which I guess, goes back to um like my own perception of things, I suppose. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. It was really just me like rambling and sort of going stream of consciousness and thought. I apologize. I just, my thoughts were all over the place for this one. So I hope it made sense. I hope it was like cohesive and stuff. But thank you so much for listening. I really, really do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked what I said, if you didn't like what I said, you can email me at manicpixieweirdo@protonmail.com. You can also reach out to me on Twitter at mpweirdo podcast or the Instagram and TikTok, _main_weirdo1. We also have a shop. So if you'd like to support this podcast with the shop, you can definitely go check that out. The link is in the description. So check that out. See, it would really help the show. It really would. And I appreciate you. If you can't, that's okay too. It's totally fine. You can always rate and review the podcast, or like hit the thumbs up button or whatever. That also really, really, really helps the show. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. As always, be kind and stay weird. Have a good one. Bye.